we are enabling the access of the longest, the more complex DNA pieces, so no experiment cannot be done, basically.
Okay. Oh.
All of that is fueled by this innovative enzymatic DNA synthesis technology, because we're completely changing the paradigm on how DNA is made by being inspired by nature, by how DNA is made into living organisms, into cells with an enzyme and not with a chemical catalyst. I clearly wrote that the first 2 years were tough, but in fairness, every years I've been tough into a different way.
And I think one thing that I really liked in your stories as well is that you basically had always a starting base in Paris, but you rapidly expanded also in SF, and you rapidly had both and rapidly had US investors, rapidly had a team in the US. Now most of your commercial is in the US. That's also very hard to do. How was it?
In our story, it was a very deliberate move. We knew from the get-go that more than 50% of the market is in North America or US.
Bienvenue to a new episode. I'm your host Philip, and on this show I'm interviewing the best Europeans in biotech to help you grow. DNA oligos is an essential part of biotech. Now it is possible to have a DNA printer in the lab to have a faster and better access to those oligos. The leading provider of such a DNA printer is TRANSCRIPT, which is based in Paris and San Francisco. So I caught up with one of its founders, Thomas. I've known TRANSCRIPT and its founder team since almost 7 years before they raised the seed round. We talked about the commercialization of the first DNA printer. We also talked about company building at large and how to be successful in a US expansion. So here's my conversation with Thomas, and please hit the like, follow button if you're enjoying it. All right, welcome to the show, Thomas.
Thank you, Philip. Glad to be there. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great. Actually, we were just saying it's the first time we really talk live. I mean, I know so your co-founders really well, but it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Cool. So I want to start with basically the decade since you started TRANSCRIPT. Congrats on the 10 years already, and congrats on the numbers I saw in the press release. And you made a nice blog post that you raised basically 260 or 265 million euros. You had 150 patents, which is a lot of patents. And now you commercialized and you have 20 million euro of sales already. So yeah, I guess you must be like super proud of the achievements. Like,
right, Philip. It has been a journey that started with the three co-founders having a vision and an idea and a strong desire to build something. And I think that what I'm pretty proud about at TRANSCRIPT is that we really built it from scratch. Like, unlike the usual startup story when it's involving deep tech and science and so on, it's not a spin-off from a lab. We basically decided to create it and we did it. And so that part really makes me proud, because it's very, very difficult to do that. You need to build a company while you're inventing the technology, you're building the science behind it. But you have also to bring that all together, having in mind that at the end of the day, you're building a company. So it has to be generating revenue, it has to have some decent margin and be profitable. So yes, it's been... We probably, all the three co-founders were first entrepreneur, and including myself, obviously. And we probably didn't start by the easy way, but that's also what it's a bit of a definition of ourselves. So that makes sense in a way.
It worked out well though. Maybe on the sketch, on the blog post, you mentioned that the first 2 years were really tough. Like you were trying to make experiments and you were struggling to get some results already at the beginning to make it work. Can you go back to a bit, expand on this moments and like how you got your first proof of concept? And then, as you said, like I think it's really tricky, especially when you don't spin out from institute, like how you manage to bridge then to get the first financing and really get everything going.
Yeah. I clearly wrote that the first 2 years were tough. But in fairness, every years I've been tough into a different way. No, but because it was tough, but it was also very simple. We needed to start somewhere, and where we needed to start was building the the foundational technology and push the boundary of science. And that was all the focus. So focus-wise, it was pretty good and pretty easy. What was tough is that it was long hour in the lab, iterating on experiment, trying everything, and you know how science is working. It's not that predictable
Working
in
on
some
work.
aspect. Yeah. It's if you don't have, like, there is no crystal ball in what is going to happen or not. So sometimes you're facing like failure after failure after failure when you're looking for some particular result into your experiment, and it could be tough emotionally, and it could be tough to just stay very long hour at night or during the weekends while the result are keep coming negative. But we went out of that phase, and actually we went out into a really great way. It's almost something that you will say I'm inventing, but at some point our goal was to be able to synthesize 10 nucleotides in a row, like to put those 10 nucleotides one after each other, and we were stuck for a super long time at 3 or 5-ish, and we couldn't go any longer, and it was a real struggle for the company. And I remember I had a moment where I got back to my lab notebook, and I'm looking at the past page, which, by the way, is a good advice. Like, you should always keep a well-organized, well-written notebook, because it could literally save your life. So I was doing, like, looking at that past experiment, and some results struck my eyes at that point. I say, well, I probably I'm oversighting on this particular mutant of our polymerase that we were using for the technology, and I didn't understand at that time why I decided to just forget about that mutant, and at this moment I say, okay, we need to test that. And it was in December, and my full family-in-law, they live in California, so and that particular winter I need to go to California to spend Christmas with her. So I told my team at that time, which was only 2 people with me at the lab, like, you need to produce this mutant and to test it. And so we are putting all that together. I'm taking the plane, and I'm like, okay, show me, like, send me the result when I'm touching down. I'm touching down on 24 December in SFO, and I'm activating my data. I'm usually not doing that because I don't want to pay the fee, but like this time I'm activating my data like crazy, and they send me this gel picture showing the 10 nucleotide, like, super clean, super neat, and I was like, this is the best Christmas present. And actually, it unlocked a lot of things, because with that in hands, we were able to show it to one of our main investor, Illumina Venture, that really super understood the core of the technology, and it accelerated our discussion with them about what would become a Series A fundraising that would be transformative for the company. So it was, yeah, the 2 first were tough, but there has been some really good moments, and the focus was great. The energy was great, and so on. So tough, but tough in a good way. I say.
Okay. Gives me goosebumps. It reminds me the early days of La Biotech as well. The first 2 years were roller coasters. I think every entrepreneur, any would-be entrepreneur who listens to the show is also. I think that's one of the lessons. At least the first 2 years is of any company, I would say, is intense, and you have to at least stick to the 2 years and try to go past, and even setbacks go. I think you have very good lessons there. On the maybe in you mentioned a lot the science and the experiments. I'm curious also on the finance side, on how did you get the financing to run these experiments? You mentioned the Series A, but I think you had a seed already with, I think, Sofinova, if I'm correct.
Yeah, absolutely, Philip. Well, even before that, and one of the a bit difficult or complex aspect in the first 2 years was the very first chunk of money. We got it from friends and family, and it was super small. It was $150,000 euros at that time. And I was the only one on the payroll, and I clearly had to adjust my compensation to be able not to drain everything from the company at that time and keep it going through the experiment, paying the lab, the reagent, the different vendors, and so on. So that's how we started. We really started out of our network of friends and family that were crazy enough or generous enough, I should say, to give us this amount of money in order to really kickstart from nothing. Like we had like 15 slide and our brain to start with. So we start with that money, and we not quickly, but we achieve a very like small, especially from today's point of view, but a small proof of concept, scientific proof of concept. And with that, and more work on how to commercialize, how to bring this technology to the market, and the vision of the company, we brought that to investors, including Sofinova and Kurma, that are two fantastic VCs in the French European scene, and in the sense of they are very innovative and look at disruptive technology and so on. And they were pretty interesting into doing that. So then we raised our Series Seed at the end of 2016, a bit before the end of 2016, and with that money we could really transition from what looked like a garage project into a real company, like hiring our first employee. Even if we kept it very small, like we probably grew from one full-time employee, that was me, to 10 or 12, so very small. But still, it was going into the creating the company path.
You really made it from 0 to 1, basically. It's amazing. Actually, it reminds me that that's when I first met Sylvain, the co-founder. He came to one of our events from La Biotech, which was at the Machine du Moulin Rouge, which is pretty funny. And I still remember he told me the whole plan, everything, and he was, we're closing a seed. I was like, yeah, okay, sounds great, but like, I wasn't sure it would work and everything, but it sounded great. And then I saw you closed it, and then everything else. And it was like, wow, well done. Like, it was very nice. Yeah, very nicely done. Yeah, and maybe you zooming out a bit on the problem you're solving. Okay. I mean, the product is a DNA printer based on enzymes, or at least the enzymes to make the oligos. From what I understand, you are. I mean, you're one of the leaders for that globally. And from what I understand, also one of the problem you're trying to solve is the logistic aspect on the speed to get your oligos. So you have the printer in the lab versus ordering them and getting it shipped, everything. Can you expand a bit on the problems you're solving?
Yeah, sure. So what we are really solving is for researcher in any format, any field, but more especially in the field of pharma therapeutics, to get the DNA they need to make things progress. Like access to DNA is in life science, in my opinion, a big bottleneck, because you're using DNA to program or reprogram biological system, and there is always a physical barrier in order for people that are designing experiment, designing DNA, even indirectly, or using a software tool to get this molecule into their experiment. And we are to solve that. So yes, there is a logistic turnaround time, speed aspect to it. There is a control aspect to it, and there is also a quality or performance aspect to it. Like we are, with our enzymatic DNA synthesis, we call it EDS for short. We are enabling the access of the longest, the more complex DNA pieces. So no experiment cannot be done, basically.
Okay.
So there is a logistic aspect, or a material aspect to it, but there is also performance or unlocking of sequence space and so on aspect to it as well. So we are really, and all of that is fueled by this innovative enzymatic DNA synthesis technology, because we're completely changing the paradigm on how DNA is made by being inspired by nature, by how DNA is made into living organisms, into cells, with an enzyme and not with a chemical catalyst. Because the chemical catalyst made sense when we discover the DNA molecule structure in the 50s. We wanted to understand how it was working. We wanted to replicate, and chemistry was the strongest way and the most amenable way to do it. But we've made so much progress into enzyme engineering, polymerase engineering in general, and also other aspects, that when we created the company, we did it with a strong vision that the chemical way of making DNA should be replaced by something that is way more powerful, but in the same time super easy to implement, because the enzyme is doing the heavy lifting work, not the operator, not the scientist or the engineer or the technician.
Like, because by preparing the call, I talked to a friend who was a researcher at Harvard, and I told him, yeah, I think you guys are solving a logistics or part of the logistics problem. He told me, yeah, but I mean, at Harvard, I just ordered my oligo, and the next morning they're already here. So why do I really need it, like a printer? So I mean, yeah, what do you? I guess maybe that's some of the objection you hear from time to time. With
Yeah, and that depends exactly on your configuration and so on. When you're just want an oligo and you're into a great place like Harvard, yes, there is the logistic aspect is pretty slim to solve. Although you can like having it in 6 hour in full of your control with no information sharing is still valuable for some companies and some teams and some setups. But also, like, whenever you're going away from the vanilla short oligos, the time increase, the sequence space, like the what service provider will reject because they seems it's too complex for them or so on. In like the sequence space narrows down, so the rejection rate increase. And so at the end of the day, you don't have what you want, or you don't have it exactly when you need it. And so that's an issue, because it just prevents innovation. It just prevents people to focus on the important aspect of their work, which is to make their project progress and to get the answer or to build something. And just worrying about the tool to build your stuff is not a good way to go.
yeah, I like that. Yeah. And on the competition side, I mean, I looked up also a bit your competitors. I mean, one on DNA printing, I saw there's what is it, molecular assemblies or Evotenics. On the more chemistry, or let's say, I know Twists. I know Emily from Twists. Like, how do you? I think. I mean, I have a guess on how you differentiate, but well, yeah, how do you differentiate from all of them? Like, I mean, you mentioned some of it. Yeah.
Yeah, the DNA market is pretty complex. You have different products, you have different technology, you have different business model, and so depending on who we are talking about or targeting, we compete into different ways. One point that we already touched, Philip, is on the business model. We are one of the only company to offer a distributed solution. Like, if you want to have a capacity to print your own, I mean, the DNA you need into your own project directly into your lab, we can provide that, and with unprecedented performances, unprecedented speed, and unprecedented ease of implementation.
Yeah, I will
And
put the
we're,
image. Sorry, but it's really a DNA printer, like a
yep,
big machine.
it's
Yeah.
well, it's a sequencer side, but instead of reading the DNA, it's synthesizing the DNA, and you have different kits format. We have the 96, so you can print 96 sequence up to 120 nucleotide directly in your lab, or we have the 384 format as well. So you can print a lot of DNA It's pretty fast, like 6 hours if you want primers, a bit longer if you want longer oligos, and so on. So that's one way we differentiate. Another way we differentiate is on the technology. As I say, we are really in the forefront of innovation in terms of DNA synthesis technology, and we're using enzyme. There is a few companies, you mentioned molecular assembly. There is other that are trying and following our path into developing enzymatic DNA synthesis technology. We're the only real commercial one, so we've scaled. We invented the technology, we developed it, and then we scale it to a commercial level. And we are also doing a lot of the synthesis inside our walls in order to make our customer benefit from the last advancement in our technology performances. So we are able to print 600 nucleotide oligos into one row.
Which is impossible by chemistry.
Impossible by chemistry. No one will take those orders. Same on the complexity side. If you want, like, I don't know, like an homopolymer of repeat of A's for an mRNA molecule, like doing a poly-A tail, you can order at us. If you run 351 A's in a row, I don't know why, but if you want that, we can make it for you. And so in that sense, we can really unlock lots of different sequence space and complexity being used there as a general adjective. Like length is part of the complexity, repeats, homopolymer is part of the complexity. So yeah, the way we are synthesizing DNA is differentiated for sure. And the way we are scaling the technology, the way we are approaching the technology is another differentiating factor. So in that sense, we're pretty unique. You won't find a company that is doing enzymatic plus distributed plus scale the technology and commercial this new technology in this type of way. And we're taking EDS and we're putting that into lots of different format, like we're integrating our EDS technology to make gene directly, so not only oligo, but assemble those oligo into a fully in vitro approach, so you can add directly genes that are gene fragment that you can use for developing new therapeutic modalities such as mRNA vaccines, such as cell and gene therapies, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, very clear. On the commercialization, I saw the sales number. I mean, 20 million. I think you launched, what was it, in May 2023? You launched the printer, so it's not that long. But the 20 million figure didn't seem that high to me. Or like, what do you like? What?
So we launched our syntax product in early 2023. So think about 1st January 2023. Then this 20 million figure is a blend of lots of things. It's from our product, from the different revenue we get from R&D contract and so on. So, well, you say Twist, Philip. Look at their number in the first year and so on. They were around like 3 and then probably 6 the second year million revenue, which in the life science tool business it's a pretty good number. Of course, everyone wants this number to be as high as possible, but I think we've done a decent job at commercializing something that is difficult, especially into this new economic environment where the interest rate since after 2022 is skyrocketing, which make a CapEx play, because we're selling a box. Basically, we're selling a system, an instrument, and kits, and recurring revenue coming from kits. And that is, since the interest rates are up to the roof, those CapEx play as a business model have been very, very difficult. Look at even Illumina stock. I mean, these companies has been the like controlling the sequencing market for decades, and they're still it's still difficult for them, and so till for a small company like ours, it's clear that it's going to have an impact.
Yeah. Don't I know it from even from the podcast. Trying to get advertisers right now, and advertising budget also like hard to get. Yeah. Let's see how 2025, 2026, how it sounds like. Maybe it's starting off again or getting better, but let's see. Okay, no, I think that's good. And maybe on the what's one thing else? I mean, we talked about the beginning. We are talking about where's now. I'm curious also is in the between, because I mean, as you mentioned, you went from ID, from basically like rough technology that you productized, and then you really go into commercialization. So it's quite like some steps and quite difficult steps. Like maybe what were some of your like lessons on the really on the productization and preparing for commercialization?
Yeah, that's a good question, Philip. In the sense that there is so many, so how to make it meaningful for the people that are listening. Well, on the productification, if I start with this aspect, it's clear that a lot of people warn us about that making a system, an instrument like a box to sell is paramount of difficulties, because you need the box to work, but you need it to work in the field, like in the end of your customer. And that's really tough because it's a different environment that you're not controlling. The user will behave into a way you're not controlling. You have to think about all the failure mode, and you have to make it like super extra robust. And it's like
You will use it.
yeah, easy to use, and we were listening to those advice, and we were understanding them. But it's only when you really are doing it that you take the full extent of this comment and those advice. And it's true that it's very, very hard to build a box. It's probably worth, one of the listeners is you should build the box and test it internally with as far as possible with internal customer, like naive people in your organization that will be able to use it and to find the failure more, like to break it, like even a bit like the software company when they release a new version, they probably ask a part of the company like try to hack it so we can understand where are the blind spot and so on. And so that is critical on the path of making such complex system that needs to be as robust. And that's taking a long time. And the trade-off is you should really think about like what are the 2 or 3 features you want to be on that box, and forget about everything else, and you do that very, very well in terms of robustness, and only after that you start building on. Yeah. We also did that work when it was in the middle of, actually, we really started just before the COVID pandemic breakout. And so for us, we use an external firm in order to help us engineer the system, because at the core of the company, we are people that are building a molecular biology technology. We're not making hardware or software or electronics or whatever. Plus, we wanted to make this part not disruptive innovation. I mean, there is a lot of work and engineering and brain that was put into the syntax design and development, but we were already innovating, sorry, on the biochemistry side. So we wanted to keep that as most of the shelf types of things.
And you didn't need to reinvent how to make a box. Like there's people who manage how to, it.
And doing that into the pandemic just make this even harder with communication, with testing and so on, because we were our partner is in US, and just make that super hard. So also one of the lessons learned is that distance and time difference is a reality, and even if our communication channel and tools has improved tremendously, it's still difficult. And so if you can find a partner that is close to you in the same time zone, it will make your life easier for sure.
I like that. And bouncing on what you said on like the difficulty, I mean, like what comes to my mind as well is that you really need the firepower as well to make it work, or especially the financing. And I guess this explains also the amount of money you raised, because you need like enough capacity people to execute and to solve all these challenges. And I guess for some startups that don't manage to raise enough and maybe try to do a too complex product, there's just a misfit maybe. Or like, how do you see it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, Philippe. There is two aspects in our story. First, and I think every entrepreneurship story has a part of luck, and this is where we got lucky. We were into a clearly upward trend in terms of fundraising. We started the company in 2014, and we did our last fundraising at the end of 2021. And if you look at how many deals, how much money invested, and so on, it was clearly a very good trend. And we basically ride that wave. And on that sense, we were lucky because if it would have been a different, at least fundraising story, if we were creating the company at a different time. But the thing where we created our own luck, or we were fully in control, is our funding strategy. And our funding strategy was quite simple. We are very, very into always fundraising mode. We raised Series A way before plan. When we raised Series C, we had I don't remember exactly, but probably a 2 years or 2.5 year runway. And actually, within the first year, we raised Series A. And the reason is we were like always entertaining investor discussion and relationship, and always trying to see about the small signal in the investor side, where we could engage into a fundraising conversation, even if it was not exactly the plan in terms of cash runway and so on. And we did that Series A, Series B, Series B plus, and even Series C. And I think it really solved for what you say, Philip, about having the dry powder to be able to do those complex and long and costly development.
That's a good lesson for anyone fundraising. Yes. On the maybe on actually one thing in the blog post as well, you said you were transitioning now to CSO. So you're a CEO for 10 years, now you transition to CSO, and there's a new CEO coming in, Mark. Can you just talk briefly about the transition, on the whys, and how you feel about it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've always had this 10-year horizon in front of my eyes. Like you can ask Xavier and Silva. Actually, every year or 2 years or so, I reminded them about this 10-year period of time. And it's a bit silly, but for me, it was important to keep in mind this horizon from a personal and professional standpoint. And so when basically I created the company in 2014, and in 2024, the 10-year horizon were there. And I have anticipated about that, and I sat with myself and really think about like what is the next branch and point. Yeah, exactly. You get it. And so it's a bunch of reasons. Some of them are clearly personal. I have 3 kids now. My middle son Marius is on the autistic spectrum, so he needs me, and I need to be there for him. So there is clearly some personal aspect. There is that, but there is more than that, and there is also some professional aspect where, I think I could be more useful for the company in that role. I can also go back to stuff that I was not able to spend enough time, in my opinion, on, which is around the application, the market, the link between what the market wants and what the company capability can be done, and so on. And also because I had a sense and a feeling of accomplishing part of my mission, and that's, yes, of course, I'm the number one servant of the company, but at some point, I my, the thing I want to do is important as well, and it matters, and the thing I wanted to do at that point was a bit different than the thing I used to do. And so after 10 years, after bringing the company from where I created to where it is now, I think I've accomplished clearly part of the mission, and I deserve to be able to think a bit about myself as well.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I was about to ask. I mean, that sounds very very good because I heard sometimes. I mean, especially in the Silicon Valley, of quite some, or in San Francisco, quite some stories where the founders are pushed out, and you have kind of the investors pushing for like professional management to come in, especially professional CEO, and the whole like founders mod discussion came out recently, and there's quite some like in some cases it didn't work out well, but in some other cases it also worked out well. So yeah,
Yeah, it's always tricky. It's difficult for lots of people. Like I have employee in the company that I recruited myself, probably like 9 or 10 years ago, and obviously for those people or anyone in the company, this is an important change and important information. You like no one knows the future with certainty, so there is a lot of complexity around that. And this is why I think part of my interim mission is to make sure it's working well and going well, which it is. I mean, Mark has taken the job as beginning of October, and we're making tremendous progress on every aspect actually. So yes, picking up on your comment, Philip, on the founder CEO and sometimes what investor wants and so on. What I'm hearing from, at least from my perspective, is that there is a good value in being a founder CEO versus a professional CEO in the eyes of some investor here, at least in the Silicon Valley. Like I'm hearing really people that are looking for this very profile instead of just a professional CEO, which makes sense to me. Like being a founder CEO, I understand how things could be different from a professional CEO. But like sometimes a company needs a professional CEO, and it's completely natural transition. Like every company, like the big name that we know from the tech or from the deep tech, the most of the company are going through those changes. It's just the natural cycle of life of companies.
that's good. I'm curious. Could you expand a bit, especially in life sciences, for like the difference it made of having a founder CEO versus a professional CEO coming in your views or in your experience with the script, what you could feel like?
Yeah, well, I will have to acquire more experience to really answer, I think, meaningfully this question. But on the founder CEO side, what I can tell you that I mean, every one of us, there is a reason why we are creating those company and taking the really high amount of risk, taking the super high burden, the difficulty we've talked at the beginning of the show. All of that, there is a reason why we are doing that. The reason is the vision, the motivation, the passion, and so on. And I'm not saying a professional CEO cannot have that, but it's different. Like the story begins by an impulse, and the founding CEO or the founders are giving this impulse, and that's the difference. And sometimes there is company that's where they are. They need that impulse, or they need this type of approach instead of a very I don't know, like very meticulous, very rational or whatever profile of more commercial CEO you can put behind that.
Mm, like that. And on the, I think, one thing we didn't, I mean, you mentioned the US in what you said, you had a partner in the US, and you you mentioned, I mean, the partner to develop the box. That's kind of the syntax. Yeah. And I think one thing that I really liked in your stories as well is that you basically had always a, I mean, kind of a starting base in Paris, but you rapidly expanded also in SF. And you rapidly had both, and rapidly had US investors, rapidly had a team in the US. I think now most of your commercial, I think, is in the US as well, if I understood correctly. Like how did that? But that's also very hard to do. I mean, it's not easy. And you mentioned time difference. I mean, 9 hours is quite a lot. But how, like, yeah, how was it, and how important was it for to contribute, like, to the success?
Yes. So in our story, it was a very deliberate move for ticking a certain number of boxes. We knew from the get-go that more than 50% of the market was and still is in North America or US. So for us, it was very obvious that being seen as a local company would be a plus and would be important. So I always had that in mind. Uh, uh, One of the other reasons was the talent pool, especially for building the box, which I think is evolving right now. We have some very, very good people in Europe and even in France that could completely do the job that we've done in US. But at that time, maybe because a bit of a lack of knowledge and a bit being receptive to our American investor, we thought the talent pool was very, very different, and we wanted to benefit from a talent pool that at least on paper or with what people told us was better in US. Again, I think it's not true. It wasn't probably true at that time, and it's clearly not true today. But at least it was one of the motivating factor on that. And being close to the money, to the investor. I mean, you probably have heard some story where people in the Silicon Valley would invest only if it's less than 30-minute drive time to their office. And I honestly don't know if it's true or not, but there is a part of truth in that. Like, if you're closer to those people, they are more likely to invest. You seems to be it's more easy, or they understand more. Like, it's a bit like a human thing. And so that was a different reason. That was very deliberate. Now it's very hard. It costs a lot, and sometime we probably precipitate we went too fast into growing or creating some activities in US, or and we are, if we had taken a bit more time to think, is it better to do it in US or not? One learning is that uh, 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 like having the part of your company that is developing the product close to the part of your company that is uh, 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 developing the core capabilities and the core technology is very important, because you need those people to literally be in the same room in order to quickly iterate, quickly resolve unforecasted and issue and so on. And sometime for us it took more time. It's like we were lost into the time zone, or lost into translation, but
Because your R&D, your molecular R&D was still in Paris, and basically the productization of box was in the US.
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
you got it. And sometimes it was just doing extra change to just pass this 6,000 kilometer distance and 9 hour time difference. and it's also sometimes run into our benefit. Like clearly, TRANSCRIPT is like it's a 24-hour company. Like when the team in Paris end their day, the team in US basically have started there and could go to your benefit. But in the early productization phase, it's really good to have the two functions, the two activities, sorry, very close one to another in order to really be able to iterate super quickly and to solve the different challenges.
Yeah, that's good. I think I mean, maybe also on a bit more personal question, but I think you mentioned your partner, your wife is American, and or you were and you were already based, or you had work experience in the Valley in SF. And then I think for Sylvain, if I remember correctly, is a similar story as well. So how did this play a role also to help choose SF or choose the US? Like,
Yeah, so on my case, my wife is French, but
okay.
her parents, they are living in California, absolutely. And it's true that before relocating myself in US, I had a past experience actually 12 years ago where I was working for Total and I got I got to work in US for Total. So in the Bay Area. So yes, the Bay Area was very familiar to me and to us, because you mentioned Silva as well. So yes, we knew that. It didn't really matter in the decision of expanding the company in US. So it was not part of why we want to do that. It was more what I say earlier. But it's right that it took a part into the decision of choosing the Bay Area alternative to other parts in the US country. We actually we are engineers, so we did a decision matrix with different like cities or area in the US. We had Boston, we had SF, we had San Diego, we had a bunch of them, and we score them, and we really did the thing like by the book. And unfortunately for us, Boston and Bay Area came exactly the same overall score. So we were like, what are we doing? Like we were like error, like we didn't know how to do. And so at some point we say like, we know the Bay Area, it's familiar to us. Let's add this extra criteria that will enable us to choose the Bay Area versus elsewhere.
That's cool.
At the end of the day, I think the time difference is bigger and so on, but it has some advantages as well. And so I don't think it would have been very different one way or the other. We had to choose.
I think one thing also from a bigger picture, California, or especially SF, what I remember, even Sylvain mentioned this. I asked, why not Boston? I mean, quite a lot of European biotechs, they go to Boston because you have 6 hour time difference versus 9. And Boston obviously is a huge biotech hub. But one thing he mentioned was that, and I didn't realize it, but that SF was really the hotbed for life science tools. And that quite a lot was Biorad, was Twist, but many others. And also for SynBio was bigger than Boston can be. I mean, SynBio Beta is there, or there's a conference and a lot more. And even Illumina, I think, is in San Diego, but it's not too far. So I think, I mean, even for our listeners too, I didn't realize that tools were so much more important in promotion.
Yeah, Genentech is there. Like there is this really a very important number of very innovative life science company, especially in tools, as you're saying, Philip. Yeah, it's difficult to it's those kind of question where you don't have a parallel universe to understand what would be the difference. But I cannot tell. I mean, that's why we were very very challenged when the decision matrix came up with the same score. Like, we need to decide on not rational basis. So what are we going to do? Yeah, flipping a coin was one option. Actually, there is some part of the company where we did that, but it's another story. But here, we put into play some personal consideration or familiar consideration, and then SF area came first.
That's good. Maybe a last question before I finish with a quick fire, like just quick question. But one last question for you to finish is more on the next steps. Let's say for 2025 or beyond for DNA Script. Like what's in the pipe? Yeah.
Yeah, so I touch quickly based on that. So we're making really tremendous progress on our core technology, and we want the market, our customer, our future customer to benefit from that. So what we're doing is we're opening, like, instead of being really strict of you need to buy syntax to benefit from EDS, we're going to open ourself and our business model to, like, using our internally our syntax and our production tool in order to being able to ship DNA, like really special DNA, like super complex, super long, or whatever the people need, directly to the people. So we're doing two things. We're lowering the barrier of adoption and testing of our new technology. You don't need to buy syntax and to put down this amount of benefit from it. And we're also really, for us, we're fast tracking the development of the technology, because making 600 nucleotide lengths on syntax is completely doable. But as I say, like, making it super robust, super reliably, will take some time and investment in the company, while we are already making it into our lab, and we are making tons of it. So just making our customer, our future customer, benefiting from the get-go to that is something that we will focus in 2025.
That's nice. That's good. Great. It's a great way to finish and to segue into the quick fire. So I will ask just quick questions, one sentence answer, or sometimes yes and no. Okay. Some are more serious, some are less serious. To start with is a less serious one. Are you on Mac or PC?
PC.
You didn't switch with the Apple headquarter, not far. You didn't switch.
No. I'm with Google Pixel for phone. Like, only one phone, only one laptop.
That's a good one. You answered, I guess, a bit on the 25, but what's on top of your mind at the moment? Or right now?
Top of mind on the moment, generally speaking, is social networks. I'm listening to lots of podcasts around social networks and what could be the effect on our youth. I mean, being a father of 3 children is a concern.
Oh, okay. What's your favorite biotech book?
It's tough. My favorite book of the moment is The Mom Test. It's not a biotech book, but I would recommend it to everyone that is trying to make a product.
Okay. What was the name again?
It's The Mom Test.
The Mem Test. Okay. I would check it out. One mistake you made in the past 12 months.
Sometimes speaking on a topic where I should have not speak on this topic. I think I know it's a bit more longer than you expect, Philip, but that's one of the things when you're an exec, including a CEO, you need to understand when it's a good time to speak, and more importantly, when it's a good time not to speak. Because sometimes it's just not helping the other, not helping the topic, and not giving a good image of you, and could have consequences.
I like that. Is Paris the best biotech hub in Europe?
Yeah, definitely.
One new habit you adopted recently.
Doing summary of my days, like
Journaling.
at the end of the day. Yeah, it's like I'm forcing myself to say, okay, I had this meeting. What are the take home, even if it's one-on-one meeting or stuff that didn't call for a report or whatever. I'm doing this now, and that's tremendously helpful because I can go back to my notes. It's like I'm capturing a bit of my mental state and idea at that time, and this is sometimes something I love that the technology could create at some point like a mental image of what you were at that moment. So you can go back to it, and this is a proxy. It's really not ideal, but this is a proxy of it, and it's a new habit I'm doing.
I would love that, like a Neuralink that captures your mental state. That I think we can talk again of.
Don't tell me about that. Yeah, I love that too.
I love to take notes as well, but yeah, it's another topic. How much do you sleep per night?
A lot. I need to sleep a lot. If I'm going to bed at 8 p.m., I'm so happy, and then I need to wake up at 4 or 5 because that's the way I'm operating. But I need this 8 hour of sleep. Otherwise, I'm less performant in my job or in my day-to-day life.
That's good. Same for me. One European biotech that stands out to you or stood out recently.
Stuff. Well, it's a bit more than a biotech, but the people I was referring to is MGA. They are based in I think near Bordeaux, and they are an engineering company that basically could have done the syntax development and so on. And I think they are tremendously good. And so we've done a small project with them. I know that some other biotech has done some project with them, and I think they are really good. And it's very important for Europe and France to keep this type of talent pool in their industry.
Yeah, cool. And the last question: who is one of your biotech heroes, if possible, someone in Europe?
Well, my real biotech heroes is Jeff Atley from Illumina, but he's not European for sure. My biotech hero in Europe, I don't remember the name, but it's the guy working in SynBio in I think it's in Cambridge University. I mean, this is really putting the forefront of the vision around what's need to be done in the new modalities such as mRNA, cell and gene therapies, and so on. So I can go back to you with the name. Philip, I hope UK is still part of Europe in the question. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and I mean, Illumina is such a crazy story. And I guess for you guys, it's such an inspiration, and I think there's so many lessons you can learn from Illumina. It's crazy.
It is, and I think Jeff Atley is one of the best industrial and company leaders that actually go beyond just the field of life science, biotool or life science.
Great. It was amazing conversation. We loved it. Thanks for taking the time, and good luck with everything.
Thanks for having me, Philippe. It was very, very pleasant on my side, and thanks for your question.
Great. I'm impressed by the success stories of Thomas and his team. I'm also impressed by his focus on the science and product while being super down to earth. If you've also enjoyed this episode, please hit the like, follow, or review button. Any of these actions would help a lot to give access to more people to the show. If you want to see similar videos, we have a lot of them on our channel. I would also be curious to hear what you think. So if you could leave a comment wherever you are, or shoot me an email at philip@Flot.bio. All right, catch you in the next episode.